All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to How to Master SQL DBA with TK. And as you already know, I'm TK himself. So, this is our YouTube channel where we post all our videos about SQL. Please check it out. We have a lot of good information on this YouTube page. All right. Let me open my notepad and let's see what we got going on today. So for today, we are going to learn how to shrink databases. All right. So right here, because last time we did troubleshoot some jobs and it was a very good class. Please check it out. Check the video out. Okay. So today we are going to shrink databases. So just for reference, right? Shrinking a database is not the best option, especially when you're looking for space, right? Because the reason you want to shrink your database is because that database is growing and consuming a lot of space. Then you are looking to clear space, so you just want to shrink it, like make it smaller. So if you have other ways of doing that, like to expand your disk drive, to retire a database and and do something like that, go ahead, right? That can be the best option. So shrinking should be your last resort, because shrinking is never the best option. Shrinking can lead to a lot of issues, a lot of fragmentation issues, right? So shrinking is never the best option. So with that being said, I'm going to show you how you can shrink your database, just in case somebody insists that, hey, we need to shrink this database. We have to shrink this database, so you know how to do it. All right, so let's open up our Hyper-V Manager. SQL01 is up, so let's go to SQL01. That's the famous SQL01, and let's connect to our instance. All right, our instance already up. That's good. All right, so let's clear from here. We don't need that anymore. All right, so we are here. You're like, how do you shrink a database, and why do you shrink a database? I believe I've already explained the reason why we should shrink, or why we might need to shrink a database, right? So if you click this, like I just did, you have all these databases right here. Number one, you want to shrink a database. I will say that, and I'll say, please don't ever shrink a data file, because those are your most important files, right? Worst case scenario, you can shrink a log file and you can shrink your temp DB. A temporary DB is just your temporary DB, right? So because at my environment, yeah, we shrink temp DB all the time to create space. But when it comes to the data file, I've been able to shrink a database just once. And I did it after the database was purged, meaning that data in that database was deleted, right? So the developers came, they were able to delete some data from that database. They were like, okay, please go ahead and shrink that database, because we have purged the data from that database. So one time. So I'm going to show you how you can shrink an entire database, or you can shrink just the files, just in case you should have the idea. But again, remember, shrinking is not always the best option, because it can lead to a lot of performance issue. I have to keep saying that. So if you were asked to shrink, let's say for example, you were asked to shrink this entire database, right? AdventureWorks 2022 did AdventureWorks DW 2022. All you have to do is right click over here. Then you go to task. You come right here that says shrink. You see? And it has two options. Do you want to shrink the database, or do you want to shrink the files? If you click on the database, now you can shrink everything. Very easy. You can just, click right here and you reshrink everything. So if I just click right here, it's going to shrink all the entire database. Is that easy? Just like that. But again, it's easy, but it can lead to a lot of performance issue. So please keep that in mind. So let's cancel from here. So if I click here, I go to task. Obviously, I go to shrink. Now, click on shrink. I can choose to do just some specific files, right? Click on here. Now that I'm inside, right? When it comes to files, it keeps telling me that there's a lot of things right here. Number one, this is your data files right here. I have a little bit of free space right here, 29% right here. That's what it's telling me. So I can shrink this because I have some free space. If I do the drop down, I can switch to my log, and right with the log, always most of the time you have more space right here. So I have 98 free space, which means I can really free up some space, even though it's not too much. So this is the available this is the available free space. So this is the space I can free up, as you can see. So this is the current space allocated, and this is the space that I can free up. That's the space that is telling me that it's available for me to free up. You see right here. So up to 98%. That's a lot. Why? If I go to the data, as you can see, I have just 29% that I can free up, right? So if I click OK, and I'm going to free that space. Sometimes, yes, especially when it comes to the log, if you click OK, it's not going to free up, especially when you have active transaction against that particular log file or that database. You will need to first stop those transactions before you can release the space, because I don't want you to go to your job and you click OK, and the space is not freeing up. You start be like, oh my God, this guy lied to us. No, let me be very specific, right? Even if you use this process and there are active transactions going on, right? Sometimes you have to check to see what speed is holding those transactions. Then you kill that speed before you can release that space. All right, to cancel from here. Now, that is how you shrink a database, and that is how you shrink files. Now, the most shrinking that you do, if ever you do it, is going to be on your temporal DB. So you click on your system databases right here, TempDB, because this TempDB is always small, and this TempDB is very important. So sometimes your TempDB gets so full that you will need to shrink it, right? And again, it's okay to shrink your TempDB. I mean, at my job, though, every environment is different. So this is what you might do compared to shrinking these other ones, though. Maybe not really, but TempDB, yes. So with the TempDB, again, you right-click, you go to Task, you go to Shrink, and you want to shrink the files. Same thing we just did right here. You click, it has multiple files. Let me see right here. The TempDB has multiple files right here. If I click right here, it has up to 8 file groups right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have to go to each. For example, TempDB, and you see how much space it has. This one has about 55% free. And then if I click OK, or I script it, then I shrink it, then do another drop down, go to number 2. Yes, this one has 94% free. You do a drop down, go to number 3, and so forth and so on, until you're able to you're able to free a decent amount of space on that TempDB, right? So yeah, in a nutshell, this is how you free space on your drive by shrinking. But again, please remember, shrinking, I know that I haven't really done the demonstration per se like we always do, but at least I believe that showing you the visual makes sense. But remember that shrinking should be your last resort because of the performance issues you may have by shrinking, especially your data. As a matter of fact, don't even think about shrinking your data files, because unless, like I said, the data has been purged, and then they need to just reorganize that data on that database. Alrighty, so without saying, with saying that, I think we have come to the end of this particular work for today, project, and I'll see you guys again. Bye-bye. Stay blessed. I'm out.